Hey, it's great to be with you again today. Do you feel like God is calling you into ministry sometimes, but you're afraid? Right? I think uh, when we feel that call the first time, we get nervous, right? I mean, we're just like, how can God use me? I mean, look at my life. I'm kind of messed up. I've done some weird things. I've done some bad things. I've said some things that, well, I don't think God can use me. But we feel like he is calling us. And in the Old Testament, God comes to Moses. Moses has been hiding out in the wilderness for 40 years. He ran away from Egypt, and God calls him from the burning bush and says, "Hey, Moses, come here." And Moses is like, what's this burning bush that's not burning? And God says, "I want you to go to Pharaoh in Egypt, and I want you to say, 'Let my people go.'" And Moses is like, "Oh, no, God, I can't do that. What am I going to do?" And God says, "No, listen, I want you to go. I want you to go, and I want you to say that you're there to free the Hebrews from the Egyptians." And Moses says, "Well, what happens if they ask me who sent me?" And God says, "Tell them, I am who I am sent you." All right? That the God of the Hebrews, Yahweh, I am, has sent me. Well, then Moses says, "Well, what happens if they don't believe me? What do I do then? What if they don't care?" And Moses says, "Well, what do you got in your hand?" He says, "I got a stick." He says, "Throw it on the ground." Turns into a snake. God says, "Pick it up." He grabs it and picks it up. It turns back into a stick. He says, "Stick your hand inside your cloak." Pulls it out. He's got leprosy all over his arm. God says, "Put your arm back in your cloak." Boom, puts it back in, pulls it back out. The leprosy is gone. Now you'd think with all that, right, that Moses would be like, "All right, I'm in, good." And then he says, God, listen, you got the wrong guy. I can't speak well. I stutter. I can't speak. God says, "You're going to be fine. I'm going to send you. You're going to speak to Pharaoh. You're going to say, 'Let my people go.' And I'm going to send your brother Aaron with you to speak for you." God has a plan, right? And just because we're afraid and we're unsure of ourselves and we think that we can't add up, that we're not qualified for what he's calling us to do, God says, "Listen, I will qualify you. I don't always call the qualified. Sometimes I call the unqualified and then I qualify them." So when we get God's call to start a ministry, to work with teenagers, to work with children, to go and visit the elderly, to work in hospice, to go to a food pantry, to go to a shelter, God says, "I want you to go, and I want you to be involved in this ministry. I want you to work with these people. I want you to be involved." And we start to question and we start to wonder why. And God's like, "Listen, I got you. I got you." So when he calls us, here's what we need to say. "Listen, Father, I'm in. Your servant hears you. Take me and use me just as I am." And he will. May God continue to pour out his grace, mercy, and blessings on each and every one of us until we get to meet again. Amen. Amen.